Hello, and so now let us start with the next national health program, that is the National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program. Beta, this program is a huge program. Why? Because it has 6 elements into it, 6 diseases into it: malaria, Japanese encephalitis, lymphatic filariasis, and so on. We'll be discussing each one of them, and we also will be discussing the National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program. Tears and toiling breath, I find thy cunning seeds, O million murdering death. These were the words by Sir Ronald Ross when he discovered the malarial transmission. Mind it, that may be an MCQ, that the malarial transmission, not the malarial parasite, the malarial transmission was discovered by Sir Ronald Ross on 20th of August 1897. Please note that the malarial parasite, next MCQ, the malarial parasite was discovered by Dr. Alphonse Leveran in 1882. So please note, these were the 2 MCQs. We are talking of a disease that is called as malaria. Earlier it was called as malaria, that is bad breath. People used to think that probably malaria was because of bad air or bad breath. But then Alphonse Leveran showed that there was a malarial parasite, and subsequently a big discovery by Ronald Ross about malarial transmission, that the Anopheles mosquito was actually the main culprit. Beta, in this whole lecture series for the National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program, we are going to discuss a lot of diseases. We will talk about malaria, we'll talk about Japanese encephalitis and all that, plus we will also talk about the National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program. In the National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program, we'll talk about the targets, the strategies, what are the indicators for every disease, for every program. And let us now start about the malarial epidemiology in this particular video module. Talking a little bit about the malaria epidemiology, just a little bit point is that India is cruising nicely as far as the malarial epidemiology is concerned, because we are taking 3% share of the global malaria cases. Malaria is a predominant problem in Africa. 95% of the global malaria cases are from Africa. Total in just 1 year, in year 2020, you can see that the world had seen 241 million cases of malaria only. So malaria is an important disease, but from India, we have seen the trend of decline in malaria. You can see the number of cases for malaria and Plasmodium falciparum. The orange color graph that you see is for malaria falciparum, and for the blue color graph, the columns that you see is for general malaria. You can see that consistently there has been a declining trend in the malaria cases. If you talk about the Indian malaria status, you can see that in total India, this area is kind of more hotspots. This area is kind of more hotspot for the malaria in India. And out of this is the real hotspot, which has a lot of Plasmodium falciparum infections. So Plasmodium falciparum infection, these are considered to be more dangerous and more severe type of infection, that is the Plasmodium falciparum. So let us start our discussion about what are the MCQ points you would like to remember for malarial epidemiology. What are the species? First MCQ, how many species of Plasmodia do we know? I hope we all know that the malaria is spread by Plasmodium species. There are over more than 100 Plasmodium species that we know of. Out of them, only 4 or 5 are human-related, causing like malaria-causing disease species. So we need to talk about Plasmodium vivax. We have the Plasmodium falciparum. We have the Plasmodium malariae. We have the Plasmodium ovale, and we have the Plasmodium novell-C. So these are different types of Plasmodia which may be related to malaria-causing species. MCQs on this now. Which of the following is the most common species that we have in India? Please note that the most common species that we have in India is falciparum. It is not that the falciparum is high. It is just that we were able to control Vivax much more than the falciparum. So that is the reason that currently the malaria is very less, but the falciparum is still higher than the Vivax. So if they ask you like which is more common in India, it is the Plasmodium falciparum which is more common. Next MCQ, which of the following species is not found in India? Please note O for avail, O for out of India. O for out of India. Which of the following is not found in India? Ovale is not found. But I do agree that both Novelsi and Ovale, they are not there in India. Novelsi is predominantly in Indonesia. It is predominantly in Vietnam, in Myanmar. In this area, you have more of Plasmodium novelsi, but in India, we do not have much of novelsi. There have been few reported cases from Andaman and Nicobar Islands, but all said and done, novelsi is one of the rarest things, Plasmodia, that we have in India. More commonly we have is falciparum and vivax. Mostly it is falciparum and vivax. But if you get single best answer which is not found in India, please mark ovale. Ovale is not found in India. So talking about the agent factors, if we just see the first big topic you need to see is the life cycle. Beta, you already must have studied much in detail about the life cycle. I'm just telling you a very gross, very crude overview about the life cycle that you see over here. We have a sporozoid stage which comes into the human. The sporozoid will enter into the liver, into the hepatocytic stage. The hepatocytic stage will enter into, you'll have the merozoid formation, right? And schizons. And then from the merozoids, you'll have the erythrocytic stage where merozoid will form into trophozoid, schizons, and so on. And then there is formation of gametocyte. Gametocyte will now go back to the mosquito. In mosquito, ookinete, oocyst, and then there is sporozoid, and the supersporozoid comes back to us. This is what is the life cycle of the Plasmodium falciparum, which I presume that you must know much more in detail. I have grossly remembered this falciparum, this Plasmodia life cycle as she goes. She goes. She goes stands for S, sporozoid, H is hepatocytic stage, erythrocytic stage, gametocyte, ookinete, oocyst, and the salivary glands, right? So that's just a very crude way. Let us have a look at some of the MCQs over here. The first MCQ I would like to see is about the mosquito and the human. Please note that where is the sexual maturation of the Plasmodia taking place? The sexual maturation of the Plasmodia is taking place where? It is taking place in the mosquito. So mosquito, it has the sexual development stage, and therefore the mosquito is called as the primary host. Why? Because there is sexual development, it is called as the primary host. Please remember this. And also called as this mosquito is also called as the definitive host. On the other hand, if we talk about the human, human does not have the sexual maturation, so therefore it is called as the secondary host, also called as the intermediate host, that is the humans. Point number 1, that was your question number 1. Next in line, let us talk about the hepatocytic and the erythrocytic stage. Beta, if you talk about the hepatocytic stage where the merozoid formation is there, the Plasmodium falciparum will form roughly approximately 40,000 merozoids. Whereas all other Plasmodia, all other types of Plasmodia, they will form only 10 to 15 to 20,000 merozoids. So 10,000 to 15,000 to 20,000. So you can remember anything from 10 to 20,000, 10,000 to 20,000 merozoids. Right? Point number 2. In the erythrocytic stage, the erythrocytic schizogony will take place. So the erythrocyte, merozoid, schizont, and the cycle is going to happen. A lot of time they'll repeat the cycle, and this repeated cycle is point number 2. Point number 3, in fact, the first MCQ, the second. Point number 3, it is associated with the clinical features. The clinical features of peak in the fever with chills and rigor, that is associated with the erythrocytic stage. Point number 3, this stage is point number 4. This stage also shows a differential cycle time. So the Plasmodium malariae will have approximately, Plasmodium malariae will have 72 hours of the cycle time of the erythrocytic schizogony, whereas all other all other types of plasmodia, they'll have anything between 36 to 48 hours of schizogony. So malaria has the longest time, and falciparum has the highest amount of merozoites. These were 4 important MCQs over here. Now, let us talk about something more, much more in detail about both these things, hepatocytic stage and the erythrocytic stage. What happens is there is something called as a relapse. Relapse means, in normal English words, it means coming back of the infection, right? So now what happens is that in case of Plasmodium vivax, the patient may show relapse after 1 to 3 years. Okay, the relapse in vivax is because of a very important phenomena, that there are dormant hypnozoites. There are dormant hypnozoites. What do you mean by dormant hypnozoites? Some hypnozoites, some stage in the hepatocytic stage, they lie dormant. So these dormant merozoites, these are called as the hypnozoites. Dormant merozoites are called as the hypnozoites. So now there is a dormant hypnozoite, and it has been seen that these dormant hypnozoites, which are lying latent, they do not cause any disease, but after some years or months, they may get activated and may cause relapse. Okay, that is one phenomena. Please note that the Plasmodium vivax and the Plasmodium ovale may show kind of relapse after 1 to 3 years. So this relapse is because of the problem in the hepatocytic stage in the dormant hypnozoites. Now, sometimes the relapse may also happen because of some other situation. What happens is, especially in the Plasmodium falciparum, what happens is that in the Plasmodium falciparum, we see that they may come back. There may be a relapse, which actually, with the quote, I'm saying relapse. So the Plasmodium falciparum may come back after 1 to 1.5 years. Now this 1.5 years, it comes back and we see that the hepatic stage was not there. There was no dormant hypnozoites. So now what is the reason of kind of a relapse? Maybe kind of a relapse which is happening in falciparum. Relapse per se pertains to hypnozoites. Relapse word, it pertains to hypnozoites. So what is the mechanism in falciparum? That is called as recrudescence. What do you mean by recrudescence? So recrudescence is nothing but the relapse of the Plasmodium falciparum, right? And very simple, recrudescence. Now, interestingly, this recrudescence phenomena is because, just have a look, it's an interesting thing, that the recrudescence is because of a low level merozoid, schizon, trophozoid, merozoid, trophozoid, schizon, this cycle which is happening at a suboptimal level. So sometimes because the drugs they are not able to wash off the parasite very distinctly, like every parasite were not washed off because of the antimalarial drugs. So we may have a low level of, technical words they say is low level of erythrocytic. There may be a low level of erythrocytic schizogony. So this erythrocytic schizogony, which is going to happen at the erythrocytic phase, this low level of erythrocytic schizogony is going to be responsible for recrudescence. This recrudescence is shown by both the Plasmodium falciparum and by the Plasmodium malariae both. So please note that the vivax and ovale will show relapse, which is real relapse, and the falciparum and the malaria will show kind of a relapse, which is technically called as recrudescence. Recrudescence is a problem of the RBC cycle, and relapse is a problem of the hepatocytic cycle. Now coming over to the next stage, point number 6, question number 6. So point number 5 we had discussed was regarding the relapse. Coming over to point number 6. In the gametocytic stage, what is important from the transmission point of view, from the public health point of view? Please note that for a person, this is a human, right? The person to be causing infection in the mosquito, in the female Anopheles mosquito. So for the person to infect a female Anopheles mosquito, the gametocytes, both male and female, should be present. So both gametocytes should be present. Both gametocytes should be present for infecting the mosquito. Second point, the gametocyte level in the blood should be more than 12 gametocytes should be present. More than 12 gametocytes per millimeter cube of the blood should be there for a human to be able to transmit infection to the mosquito. And now this whole thing, the gametocytes will go into the mosquito, they'll form the eukaryote oocyst, and the game goes on. So now this game will come back to us with a sporozoid. That's how it is. Next MCQ, point number 7. In the mosquito, for how many days will it take for the gametocytes entry and the sporozoid to come out? It is usually said 10 to 12 days, but may vary plus minus 2-3 days depending on the humidity factors, depending on the environmental factors. So many things are there. But for your exam, you can remember that 10 to 12 days the mosquito will take for gametocyte to happen into sporozoid. This is technical word. It is called as extrinsic incubation period. It is called as the extrinsic incubation period. So what is the extrinsic incubation period in malaria? Answer is 10 to 12 days of the mosquito cycle. Next is, if this you know already in the mosquito cycle, if nobody does that erythrocytic cycle, if the sporozoid tuck, it comes and becomes the gametocyte, how many days will it take? Matlab, in simple words, minimum how many days the sporozoid will take to form the gametocyte without going into that cycles? Minimum it is said 5 to 7 days. So the human cycle minimum will be for 5 to 7 days. The mosquito cycle will be for 10 to 12 days. Total we say that there's a 20-day game. From public health point of view, this gives me a very super duper important message. That is what I understand from this whole game of microbiology, that if you kill a mosquito within that 10-12 days, what will happen? If you kill a mosquito within that 10-12 days, this mosquito now is finished. So now the transmission chain is broken. It will take another 5 to 7 days and another 10 days for the transmission to start happening back again. So simple understanding, if you do fogging on Monday, when is the next level of fogging required? Will you require it again on Tuesday, Wednesday? Answer is no, you do not require it again on Tuesday or Wednesday. Why? Because you have actually interrupted the cycle for the next 7 to 10 days. So you do one fogging only within 10-12 days. You do one fogging, then you do a next fogging after 10-12 days, because that's when probably the mosquito may get infected again. Are you getting it? So this is very important for us to find out that what is the extrinsic incubation period. So based on this, I think you can understand the agent factors, that there is a minimum gametocyte infective dose. There is a minimum gametocyte infective dose. What is the gametocyte infective dose? More than 12 gametocytes should be there per cubic millimeter of the blood. The person will remain infective as long as the gametocytes are there, and provided both the gametocytes are there. So the humans remain infective. The humans remain infective as long as both gametocytes, both should be there, both gametocytes are present. So that is your point number 1. This is your point number 2. Point number 3. Who's the main reservoir of the malarial parasite? The main reservoir of the malarial parasites are humans only. Humans are the main reservoir, but we also have them in monkeys, in apes, in primates. Other primates may also be there. Who is the main source of infection? The source of infection could be an infected mosquito. You already understood that who will be infected mosquito, who takes the blood of more than 12 gametocytes. Infected mosquito, or it could be a human themselves. So human could be a source to the infection and to the Anopheles, and the Anopheles could give it back to the humans. And the point number 4 is that the extrinsic incubation period phenomena is there in the malarial parasite. Extrinsic incubation period is 10 to 12 days. That is the time for the mosquito to develop from the plasmodia in the mosquito to develop from the gametocyte to the sporozoid stage, and at this stage you can cut the chain of transmission. So chain of transmission is weakest at this point, and this we can take care in the vector control measures. Coming to the host factors, please note that the malaria has no age discrimination or no age predilection. Every age is equal exposed, but there can be certain MCQs that age less than 6 months. Because the child is very newborn, age less than 6 months, there may be high fetal hemoglobin. And because there is high fetal hemoglobin, the fetal hemoglobin is actually resistant it is resistant to Plasmodium falciparum, and therefore we may say that the falciparum chances in age less than 6 months is pretty low. Coming next, that was your point number 1. Coming to point number 2 is that people with the sickle cell trait, with the AS trait, with the sickle cell trait, they may have a very mild form of infection. They may have a milder form of infection, especially with the Plasmodium falciparum infection. It may be very mild. Why? Because the sickle cell trait is known to have resistance, kind of resistance to the pathology of the falciparum malaria. Next is, which of the following blood groups may be resistant absolutely to one of the species? That is the Duffy negative RBCs. So the RBCs which have no Duffy blood group, that is the Duffy blood group antigen, if it is not there, they are resistant to Plasmodium vivax, because actually the vivax is going to bind to the Duffy blood group antigen. So if there is no Duffy blood group, they are resistant to Plasmodium vivax. Sickle cell trait will show mild infection. Another point is point number 4 about the immune status. What do you mean by the immune status? Beta, what happens is that in a hyperendemic area, in malaria, hyperendemic areas. Hyperendemic means there is a huge, good, big number of endemicity. Hyperendemic areas like the falciparum is endemic in northeastern states. So just imagine in areas which are hyperendemic, or there is more endemicity of that Plasmodia over there, what will happen to the immune level of the population? The immunity level of the population is going to increase. Why? Because there is a repeated exposures, or there may be suboptimal exposures. So if the immune status of the people, of the population, the immunoglobulins are already formed towards the Plasmodium falciparum or the vivax, whatever hyperendemic you are living, so the immune status is high, so the chance of these people to have infection is very less. Or even if they get infection, it won't be like very, very severe infection. So the immune status is higher, and in malaria endemic areas, because of repeat exposures, the population may have decreased susceptibility to infection. Decreased susceptibility to infection, that could happen until and unless there is a very high parasite load. Till that time, probably they won't get the infection. So that is about the immune status in the host factors. And the next one is about the environmental factors. Please note that the malaria is almost there all through the year. But what is the peak season, peak months for malaria to happen? They usually happen after the summers are towards the end. In India, that is from July till November, or till December. So this is the peak season, July till November, or in more temperate areas, more in southern part of India, you might even find them in December. But the peak season usually for country India, it is July to November. What is the malaria month that we have? Malaria month is observed in the month of June. Because we want to observe malaria month, you want to do more awareness that July is coming. And when do you have the anti-malaria day or the World Malaria Day? The World Anti-Malaria Day is on 25th of April. We want to observe this 25th April just to tell everyone that the June is coming. So malaria is a big problem. You have malaria months, you have the malaria month, and then you have the Anti-Malaria Day or the World Anti-Malaria Day. So as far as the more important environmental factors are concerned, this mosquito is going to bite at what altitude? This can be asked. So if you are living high up on a mountain, this mosquito cannot fly up so high. So the mosquito will not be available for more than 2,000 to 2,500 meters. This mosquito is usually best within the temperature range of 16 to 30 degrees. 16 to 30 degrees Celsius is the best and optimum. And if you talk about the relative humidity, it loves to be in more humid, like more than 60% relative humidity. It is going to stay, of course, not more than, it should not be, the humidity should not be more than 75. So 75% is causing the mosquito also not able to breathe properly, leave aside the humans. The relative humidity is around 60%. The best temperature is 16 to 30, and that is about the altitude factors. So if you talk about the modes of transmission, how does the malaria spread? It can have a direct mode of transmission, that is by the bite of the Anopheles mosquito to the human, or the human gives gametocide back to the blood to the Anopheles. We all know that the mode of transmission, it is only by the female Anopheles. The malaria is transmitted only by the female Anopheles. With due respect to everyone, female Anopheles are blood. They live on the blood, and the male mosquitoes, male Anopheles, they are super cool. They eat only plant and smoothie juices and all these things. The female Anopheles likes to suck blood. So mode of transmission could be a direct contact with the vector, or it could be also very rare situations. You can have the congenital malaria. Congenital malaria is particularly rare, that is transmission from the mother to the baby. Next, there is another mode of transmission which could be transfusion related. Please note that in case the malaria is transfusion related, what does it mean? That means the trophozoites were already there in the blood, somebody's blood. So that is actually a trophozoite mediated. So trophozoites were already there in the blood. Now somebody got a ready-made trophozoite. So they don't need to go through that cycle. So therefore we say that the incubation period in a transfusion related malaria, it is almost half of the normal incubation period. Lower, it is 5 to 7 days, we say, is the incubation period, because that is the time for trophozoite to the symptom formation. Please also note that in case you have ever donated blood, I'm still on the transfusion malaria, in case a person donates blood, in case of a donated blood, even if the blood is kept at -4 degrees Celsius, the Plasmodium falciparum or the Plasmodia may be available in the blood for more than 2 weeks. It may be available in the blood for more than 2 weeks. That is point one. Second is that in case a person already had disease. So in case of any case of malaria, a person already had malaria, or the person is coming from some malaria endemic area. So if the person comes from a malaria endemic area, in those situations, in both these situations, please note that the blood transfusion department or you as a doctor should also know, you should make others also aware that these people should not, it's not advised for them to donate blood. Do not donate blood. For how much time? They should not be donating blood for at least 3 years. Why? Because the hypnozoites could be there in the liver. There could be a low-level erythrocytic schizogony or whatever. So any case of malaria or any case of a person who's coming from malaria endemic areas, specifically the malaria endemic area people, they should not be donating blood for at least 3 years since they have left that malaria endemic zone. And if you donate blood, even at -4 degrees, the Plasmodia is going to survive. Next is, what is the incubation period? Incubation can be remembered as FXOM, FOXOM. F stands for Plasmodium falciparum, X is for the Plasmodium vivax, O is for the Plasmodium ovale, and M is for the Plasmodium malariae. So I have just remembered it this way. FXOM, this is 12, 14, 16 and 28 days. This is what you have as the incubation period. You already note that the transfusion related malaria was only 5 to 8 days. That is for lower trophozoite induced malaria. So that is regarding the incubation period. Point number 7 is for the vectors. How many types or different types of vectors do we know? Who is going to transmit malaria? It is only the female Anopheles. So different types of vectors we have. We can have Anopheles stephensi. We can have Anopheles culicefasiens. We can have Anopheles fluviatilis. We can also have Anopheles sundaicus. We can also have Anopheles dirus. So a lot of different types of species. I've just told you some of the few types of the species which may transmit malaria. So you can have Anopheles stephensi, Culis efasiens, Fluviatilis, Sandaicus, and Diris. A few MCQs on them. I have remembered it this way. I'm just sharing with you my own way, so you can remember Anopheles stephensi. When I was in school in my city, we used to come from the city, from the urban area. In urban areas, we usually have the St. Stephen School, right? So Anopheles stephensi is urban malaria, urban vector. Just remember it this way. That's how I have remembered. St. Stephen is found in the cities, right? Urban areas. Then Culis efasiens, a lot of people in the rural areas, they'll make a lot of faces. So different faces in rural areas, Culis efasiens. F for Fluviatilis, F for forest areas. Fluviatilis is found in forest areas. It is also found in the foothills. So you can remember Fluviatilis in the foothills or the forest areas. Sandaicus, where there is so much sun. Where is more sun? It is in Andaman and Nicobar. It is in the coastal part of India. So a lot of different types of species may be found in different areas. I would also like to have another MCQ over here. In fact, two MCQs over here, that the Anopheles stephensi and Culis efasiens, they are responsible for the most common type of Anopheles which is implicated in causing malaria. Out of the urban malaria, you can have stephensi, which is more common, and the urban malaria is more commonly because of which water source? Because in many areas, there won't be any stagnant waters, there won't be any rainfall at all. So how would people get malaria in those areas? The most common way of getting urban malaria, because malaria was initially a rural disease. Now it has shifted from the rural to the urban disease. In urban areas, what is the most common reason for malaria transmission? That is the overhead tanks. The tank that we have, the water tank that we have usually at the top, if the lid is not there, that is one of the biggest reason for having urban transmission of malaria. You should also know that which of the following mosquitoes is one of the very aggressive mosquitoes. The Anopheles fluviatilis. If you talk about Anopheles fluviatilis, this is known to have the highest efficiency. It is a very highly efficient mosquito. That means even if you give it less blood, it will make more sporozoid and transmit more. So this mosquito is a highly efficient. In less time, it can give more. So this high efficient mosquito, you need more density or less density. For highly efficient mosquito, you need a lesser density. Are we getting it? So even if you are following some mosquitoes, that's what we do these days. In the national program, you will learn that we do GIS. GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems. Geographic Information Systems. We actually have systems to track the level of the mosquitoes in the area. So if you're tracking the level of the mosquitoes in the area, even if you have less amount of Fluviatilis, there could be chances of more malaria outbreaks. But on the other hand, talking about Culis efasiens, these are rural mosquitoes. They are cool people. So they are not very, very efficient. With due respect to everyone, they are not very, very efficient mosquitoes. This Culis efasiens is a low effectivity. Culis efasiens has low effectivity. It has a low effectivity, and because it has a low effectivity, what do you think about the density for causing as a public health problem? They need to be getting together in very high density for them to work as a public health problem for us. So they need high density. Whereas if you have Fluviatilis, that is a more aggressive mosquito, that's a more efficient mosquito, and you need lesser density to work as a public health problem or to pose as a public health problem for us. So that's a little bit about the discussion from entomology from the vector point of view. Next is, let us talk about the clinical features. You already must be knowing much in detail about the clinical features from medicine, pediatrics, from microbiology, from PSM also. So the clinical stages are 3 stages, beta. First stage, second stage, and the third stage. So how many stages you see? 3 stages. First stage is called as the cold stage. Second is called as the hot stage, and third is called as the sweating stage. So in the cold stage, the person is feeling cold. Hot is very hot, and sweating is you sweat it out. In the first stage, the person is feeling cold. There is chills and rigors. But the point to be noted is that in the first cold stage, the person is, mind the word, the person will feel cold. The person will feel kind of cold. But is there a fever? Answer is yes. This is an MCQ. Fever could be there from 100 degrees, as low as 100 degrees to as high as 104 degrees. There could be associated fever. That is an MCQ. So in the cold stage, the person will have chills and rigor and feel cold. This stage is usually lasting for half an hour to 1 hour. In this stage, the person will feel kind of weak with a weak pulse. Person is feeling just to lie down with a weak pulse, and the hallmark is there is rigors in this particular stage with the fever. So the parasites would also be seen in this stage. In this stage, the parasites are seen in the blood, in the cold stage. That is the onset of the symptomatology. Then you have is the hot stage. Then the person will land up into hot stage. Now this hot stage, the person's skin is very hot. And this stage is one of the most long lasting stage. It is from maybe 2 hours till 6 hours. And the person is very uncomfortable in this stage. The pulse, you can feel it. The pulse is very like full pulse, and it is a very strong pulse. So it is a rapid and a bounding full pulse. It's a bounding full pulse, which is rapid. And this stage will be for 2 to 6 hours. And of course, it's a hot stage. Will there be fever? Common sense, yes, there is fever from 101 to 104 degrees Celsius in this particular stage. In the sweating stage, this is the most comfortable stage for a person. And in this stage, there is no fever. The hallmark is, please note, these are 2 MCQs. It is the most comfortable stage. The hallmark is there is no fever. The person had chills and rigors, and then there was a hot stage, and that was a very uncomfortable stage. And after that, the person is going to sleep. The person will sleep. Usually, the person will sleep in the sweating stage. There is a lot of sweat for that person, because in the hot stage there was no sweating. So in the sweating stage there is a lot of sweat, and the person is able to rest properly. It may range from 2 to 5 hours. So that's about the timeline for most of your clinical features. Moving over to the next point, that is what are the complications. See, complications are too much immense in malaria. That will open together a different chapter for us. So just to enlist some of the complications which may be important for your understanding is, first is one big public health problem as a complication is anemia. So please note that in Anemia Mukt Bharat also we had one of the intervention is to combat anemia for the non-nutritional causes. So to combat the non-nutritional causes of anemia. In that they had included hemoglobinopathies, thalassemias. They also included the fluorosis, and they also included malaria. So malaria may cause anemia, which may pose a bigger problem on a public health basis. So one is anemia. Second is there could also be direct organ damage. There could be hepatomegaly, or there could be splenomegaly. There could also be, in severe cases, it could also land up in renal failures. See, what happens is that malaria usually does not cause too many complications if it is treated in time. But malaria is specifically fulminant in people who have less immunity. It is fulminant in pregnant females. So in pregnant females, we may see a lot of complications, especially talking about renal failures, hepatomegaly, and it could also lead to meningitis or encephalopathy, or in Plasmodium falciparum you have the black water fever. Another point which can be associated with the complications could be the onset of the febrile herpes. So febrile herpes may be associated. These are smaller herpetic reactions which may get around the mouth. And febrile herpes, again, talking about the immunodeficient status and the stress levels of the person. So all these were some of the clinical features and complications of malaria. And that's all for this module about malaria epidemiology. In the next one, we will talk more from MCQ point of view regarding diagnostics and the treatment modalities under the National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program.